So yesterday I beat Dark Souls Remastered for the first time. It took me roughly 40 hours to get to Gwyn, the final boss of the game. But why do I tell you guys how long it took me to get to the end boss? In the 40 hours I spent in Dark Souls, I fell in love with the world, its characters and the story. This is why. But wait, before I talk about my obsession about the Dark Souls world, let's take a look at the statistics of the game. It's 2011, Dark Souls just released for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. In August 2012, From Software, the developer, released a Windows version of Dark Souls. It sold over 4.9 million copies, and combined with the sold copies of Dark Souls Remastered, it adds up to 8.35 million. Dark Souls Remastered was released in 2018 on PS4, Xbox One, PC and Switch. It is a more polished version of its predecessor with better graphics and more fluid gameplay, but the exact same story and fights. I think everyone who plays games frequently at least heard about Dark Souls, or the Souls-like subgenre of games. But for those who don't know anything about this game but still clicked on this video, here's a short summary of the game and its lore behind it. Dark Souls 1 is set in the dark, decaying kingdom of Lodran. The players take on the role of the chosen undead, tasked with linking the first flame to prevent the Age of Darkness. The game's core mechanics focus on precise combat, resource management and exploration. Dark Souls is known for its punishing difficulty but rewarding sense of accomplishment. The lore is really complex and hidden in the game, so I linked you a good summary video in the description if you want to find more out about the deep meaning behind this game. So now that we talked about the statistic and the general story of the game, let's take a look at the main storyline. After you picked your class and name, you start off in the Undead Asylum. Here you learn the mechanics of the game and get the first weapons based on the class you chose. Dark Souls did an amazing job at introducing the player to the mechanics of the game. With the Asylum Demon at the end of the tutorial, you get kind of tested if you're ready for the real challenge. Because after the Undead Asylum, a giant raven flies you to the main world of the game.
It is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen.
First up, you get brought to the Firelink Shrine, which I think is the most iconic spot in Dark Souls, by the way. There, you meet Crestfallen, an important NPC who tells you to ring 2 bells of awakening. This mysterious task you have to conquer is the opening of the main story in the game. To ring the first bell, you need to reach the church and kill 2 gargoyles. The second bell is deep down at Blighttown, where you have to kill the half-human, half-spider Quelaag, the Chaos Witch. There is a deep lore behind this character, but it would take too long to explain everything behind it. Just watch the video I linked you down below. These 2 fights felt really hard in my playthrough, and I learned here that you can summon various NPCs which you meet along your way to the bosses, that help you fight against these hard monsters. In my opinion, is this first half of the game so well done? Maybe not story-wise, but it is in this half you learn what Dark Souls is about. It's about dying, trying again, getting better and of course feeling better when you finally kill that one enemy that kept sweeping your ass. After you successfully rank both bells, you'll see a giant gate opening. This is the entrance to Sen's Fortress, and I will call this the entrance of the second half of Dark Souls. Sen's Fortress is filled with deadly traps, snake enemies, crazy giants, and is easily one of the deadliest areas in this game. Sen's Fortress just feels like the beginning of something big coming right at you. On top of Sen's Fortress, you will meet a giant ass golem. He's really easy to kill though, but just after you think you conquered the castle, this happens. Anor Londo is a legendary city in Dark Souls known as the home of the gods. Situated high above the land of Lordran, it was once the radiant capital built by Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight. But as the player progresses through the game, they find Anor Londo abandoned with only a few powerful enemies and giant guardians left to defend its honor. This city is by far my favorite place in this game. All you have seen before was deadly, dilapidated and not pretty to look at. But finding out that on top of all this lays a gorgeous city was just stunning the first time I saw it. When you progress more in the story, you find out that all of this glory Anor Londo used to have is now just an illusion made up by the son of Gwyn. But nonetheless is this place the key to pushing forward into the story. After you finally found your way into the castle, died numerous times to the overpowered guardians, and after losing your sanity on the Ornstein and Smough fight, you're finally able to meet the Princess Guinevere. She is the one giving you the Lord Vessel and allows you to warp between bonfires. The first time being able to warp around and not walking everywhere you wanted to go felt so rewarding. The game did a good job by giving you this power like midway into the game, because before that you had to explore the world if you wanted to go back to an NPC, for example. But let's get back to the story. Now that you have this mysterious Lord Vessel, what do you have to do? Okay, so this is how I found out what to do with the Lord Vessel. I fell down this giant hole in Firelink Shrine and was standing in front of a giant door that wouldn't open. It was then that the game explained to me that I need to place the Lord Vessel down and fill it with the souls of Seath the Scaleless, Four Kings, Gravelord Nito and the Bed of Chaos to finally access the kiln of the First Flame. I was really hyped when I discovered this and thought that it wouldn't take too long to beat these 4 enemies and finally get to the ending of the game. But damn, was I wrong. So I don't want to talk too much about the way you get to these bosses, but rather how I felt when getting to them and finally beating them. So let's start with the Bed of Chaos. When you've made your way to Lost Izalith, you will sooner or later meet the Bed of Chaos. This boss fight is a bit different than the other bosses in this game. In order to kill it, you have to slice down the 2 shining ropes on the left and the right side of her. But if you manage to do this, she will slam open the floor and try to sweep you into the holes for an instant kill. This fight was so frustrating that I couldn't really enjoy it, to be honest. It felt like RNG if her long, root-like arms hit me or just straight up pushed me into the hole. But arguably the worst part about this fight was after dying, getting back to the boss, which takes you like 5 minutes. This doesn't sound much, but when you die, for example 20 times, you can see where this is going. Eventually, you get inside this tree-like monster and see that the real boss is just some bug that you can kill with 1 hit. At this point I was glad that it was over, and I hope that the other keeper of the Lord Souls weren't as annoying as the Bed of Chaos. Luckily, the other ones weren't as annoying to fight against, but one thing stands out though: the way of getting to Gravelord Nito. I don't know why the developers thought that this was a good idea, but in order to get to Nito, You have to search your way through a completely dark cave with really strong enemies wanting to kill you after every corner. In my playthrough, I got lucky and had a special hat that was shining and gave me more space to see. The fight against Nito was pretty decent though. I think it only took me 5 or 6 tries to beat him, and the only hard thing is to not get comboed from all the skeletons around it. The Four Kings was the most epic fight out of these 4 in my opinion. But in order to get to them, you need to make your way through the New Londo ruins and jump into a deep hole. The first time reaching this hole, I just jumped into it, not knowing I need a certain ring to stay alive. So I just died. The boss itself isn't that hard to beat, but the surroundings make it difficult. You don't really know how far you're away from the boss at any time, because everything surrounding you and the boss is just void. The next problem is that if you don't kill the enemy in time, another one spawns. This keeps going until 4 of the same boss enemies are on the field. I really liked this boss fight though, and with the special surroundings it had such an epic and mysterious vibe to it. So Seth the Scaleless is a giant dragon that attacks with crystals. But in order to get to him, you have to fight your way through Duke Archives. This place is basically a huge library inside Anor Londo, with many crystal monsters and wizards. It's such a cool idea that there is a giant crystal library inside Anor Londo, and inside it waits the last ever living dragon ready to kill you again and again. The fight is pretty straightforward though, and with the last Lord Soul Keeper killed, I knew that I was near the end. As I made my way back to the Lord Vessel, I was thinking, how could this final stretch of the game and this last boss look like? I knew that it had to be Gwyn. Every NPC talked about him and his great power. In the intro you can see him throwing lightnings and ruling over Anor Londo. So I was pretty scared, to be honest. Now I lit up the last Lord Soul and the gate opened. Finally I could enter the kiln of the first flame. This place was filled with just a few really powerful enemies, which gives this place a really uncanny vibe. After killing all of them, you stand before the notorious fog wall. Behind it awaits you the Lord of Sunlight. Okay, let me be honest with you. I really didn't think that Gwyn, the end boss of Dark Souls, would be this easy to beat. Don't get me wrong here, it took me like 10 to 15 tries, but for the final boss of this knowingly hard game, this isn't much in my opinion. Although the fight was easier than expected, it was only that easy because all of the previous enemies and bosses taught me how to get my fighting skill to this point. In order to kill Gwyn, you need to know his attack pattern perfectly and parry his attacks to deal massive amounts of damage. Missing one parry or attacking at the wrong moment leads to him killing you most certainly. I was really excited fighting Gwyn and felt amazing finally beating him and realize that I beat Dark Souls 1. But the story doesn't end here. Now you have 2 choices to make. Either you kindle the bonfire and sacrifice your soul to keep up the fire, or you let the fire burn down and become the new Dark King of Lordaeron. The problem here was, I didn't know about it at the time and just kindled the bonfire thinking there would be more to discover in this world and that this bonfire is just another checkpoint in my crazy adventure I was in. Of course, thinking back, it was clear that after killing Gwyn, there wouldn't be much to do, but I deeply wanted to play more and discover everything there is in this game and its characters. So realizing that I had just reset the world with kindling the bonfire made me sad. And it got me thinking, is it just me? Or have you guys also felt this way the first time completing Dark Souls 1? So that's exactly why I made this video. I know that there is a lot of things I left out in this video, and I hope that it is not too chaotic and that you can understand my perspective of the game. I really love Dark Souls 1 because it's more than just a game. It's an unforgettable experience. The world of Lordran is hauntingly beautiful, with every area connected in ways that make exploring feel both rewarding and intense. The story is rich yet subtle, letting you uncover its secrets at your own pace, which makes every discovery feel personal and meaningful. The combat is really challenging but fair, pushing you to improve with every death, and I have to say, few things compare to the satisfaction of finally defeating a tough boss. Dark Souls 1 is a masterclass at atmosphere, difficulty and world building. I strongly recommend it to anyone who wants a game that truly challenges and captivates them. A huge thank you guys for watching this video. Please comment your thoughts on this game and genre down below. And if you guys want another Dark Souls video, I'm currently playing Dark Souls 2, so maybe I will make another video on that game.